This is just unreal, just like the amount of firepower and tech talent. I mean, we've just been going interview after interview after interview, new companies, established companies, people that have bought, sold companies. I mean, it is a stacked ecosystem here.
There's a guy, David McCullough, who Pulitzer Prize-winning historian. He said, look, if I had to choose one city to describe the history of the United States, I would choose Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because it's had a history of being kind of industrial core. During the Civil War, it was the arsenal for the Union Army, and then existed for probably 200 plus years until such time as the probably 70s when the world changed. So I think the good news for Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh ain't like any place in the world. It's authentic. It is what it is.
I absolutely love Pittsburgh. When I moved here, it felt like the city of the future.
Okay.
There were self-driving cars everywhere, and I was just a student at Carnegie Mellon, but I knew that Pittsburgh was someplace special.
We're not just getting started here. We're well positioned with markets and with where the world's going. Mm-hmm. But what people maybe don't understand is this has been about 40 years in the making.
One of the wonderful things that the early citizens of the city decided to do was found some great universities and believed that technology was the key to the future of the United States. Fortunately, these universities still exist and are now the center of growth for the future of the city.
Carnegie Mellon University did a really unique thing back in the late 70s by starting their Robotics Institute. And then in the 80s released the world's first robotics PhD program. They knew that the future was automated. And so what you feel here is this electric energy, this momentum, because you're not coming into something that's sort of like just getting started and scrappy and like, head scratching, like how do we approach that? How do we do that? You're coming into something that's much more mature in its evolution. So the Pittsburgh Robotics Network, the community started it themselves. We had all these robotics companies that were spinning out of Carnegie Mellon University back decades ago. We had a critical mass of these companies and they were continuing to grow and they were getting stuck. And they all sort of got together and said, we really should have a formal organization that helps us in this journey because we all have the same problems. We all need to come together regularly, and there's a lot of value in doing that. These are professional gatherings where supply chain networks, peer groups, and workforce, talent all get together. And when you put a bunch of people like that together, problems can much more easily be solved. With 125 robotics and autonomy businesses, you'd think there'd be a ton of competition and that they'd be, maybe not willing to share or care with each other. But the answer to that is almost none of them are competitive. This particular community, this ecosystem, has about 8,000 people who work in it. And across all these companies, they span solutions that serve 18 different markets.
It's like all about applied robotics, so everyone's applying it in a slightly different way, slightly different niche.
That's right. Not every city needs an organization like the Pittsburgh Robotics Network. We exist because Pittsburgh has over 125 robotics companies that operate here as businesses. And that is a global anomaly. You're not going to find that in just your average city. So for a city the size of Pittsburgh, the only other two places in the United States that even have that kind of density are going to be Boston and San Francisco. Commercialization is the way all of this works. And so having a nonprofit that is more for-profit minded with focus on the business development challenges. We don't make robots, the Pittsburgh Robotics Network. We don't sell robots. We're not in that business. We're in the business of the companies and the people who are doing that. And so our job is to collect data from them, to sit down with them, to listen to what their needs are, and also to tell the world what's happening here. What we focus on is economic development, and that's just three basic things. It's a fancy word to say more companies, more investment, more jobs. So as these companies are trying to move their work out of the lab and into the world, what they need is along that journey, they need customers and they need capital investment, to sort of be that force multiplier that helps them move faster. It's easy to become deeply in love with the lore of this tech. But at the end of the day, these are tools. And if nobody's using them or nobody needs them at scale, then perhaps you need to rethink the tooling. Rather than being inspired by the technology, be inspired by the problem that it's solving. But if we're really going to see this take off, if we're really going to start changing the world, especially as the United States, if we really want to see the United States shine in innovation, then we have to be laser focused on, is this a critical problem that en masse is happening in industry. And how do we tailor make the tool to be able to address that without requiring 20 people to put their hands on it?
Pittsburgh is just hands down friendly. Everyone wants to help one another. And it has a lot of the same resources. PCB manufacturers, casting houses, injection molding, like whatever you need for your business, you can find it here. And I think for a startup, it's really incredible because it has a lot of the same like tech accelerators that are available in the Bay, but without the expense of a lease in the Bay. So it's better for businesses and then also better for personnel because you can work in tech and afford a house.
If you're a business, like if you're a robotics business, why wouldn't you want to move here where you have this community and advocates, a whole team, a whole organization that's trying to just feed you everything you need to grow your business? I mean, the value proposition for that is huge.
In so many ways, Pittsburgh has a substance to it. Startups are building things that solve real problems, and of course that's going on in every ecosystem. But that seems to be the driver for so many of our peers in the community here.
It used to be 20 years ago when I came here that people would develop a technology, get a degree, you head west or east or somewhere other than here. That's less the case. And technology has been one of the sources of that energy.
Pittsburgh's having a renaissance right now as a city. There's tons of cool stuff happening here, but I think what keeps it focused, what keeps it anchored on the region, what makes it Pittsburgh special or tailor-made for Pittsburgh is that we're focused on the community. We're focused on making sure that the talent here is happy and that they stay here and that more people come here. We're focused on making sure these businesses grow here.